Hi. So the question I'm answering today is I hear autistic people talk about running out of spoons. What does that mean? And what does that look like for you? And what do you do to cope? And thanks to whoever submitted that question. I appreciate it. Hi, I'm Millie. I'm an autistic person and also many other things, but autism affects everything in my life in both beautiful and challenging ways. This is a series where I answer anonymous questions about my life, with the intention of showing what life is really like for one autistic person. Hopefully, this will help you understand other autistic people that you are close to, even though we are all different, and maybe you will see some of me in yourself, and that will help you learn something about your own life. If you want to ask me a question, the link to the anonymous form is in the description below with more information. Thanks for watching. All right, so spoons. The word comes from spoon theory. So it's basically just a metaphor for the amount of mental or physical energy to complete tasks in a day. And the original story was based on a physical spoon, just as an example of the unit. And, it could be anything, just individual units. I have these colored chunky pencils that I love, right? So it's just anything that could be units of that energy in a day. And spoons has caught on because the original story is that it was coined by Christine Miserandino in 2003. She had a blog post and it's called The Spoon Theory. And it's because she was at a dinner with a friend and she used spoons to demonstrate her experience with lupus and being fatigued all the time and yeah, and using the spoons at dinner to demonstrate, like, I've this many units of energy for this task. If I'm going to shower, it takes away a spoon. If I'm going to cook dinner, it takes away 2 spoons, that kind of thing. So spoons is just a representation of units of energy, and the big difference to me between, everybody has energy and things take up energy, but the difference is it's used by people who are in communities based around like communities or people who deal with chronic illness and disability, like things that cause chronic fatigue, basically. So when I hear spoons, it means to me that somebody's dealing with having an especially low amount of energy in the day. And, it takes budgeting even just for things that might seem like very basic things, like having a shower or cooking dinner. And you might only be able to do a few things and might have to not do something really basic that in terms of self-care, just because you don't have enough spoons left, basically. So yeah, so it's used a lot now. It's expanded to people with chronic illness, disabilities, especially invisible disabilities, because it's not really seen why, it's not readily apparent why you would have such a low amount of energy, and anything that causes chronic fatigue. And then also other marginalized cultures as well. It's like an experience of mine that relates to this is just from being trans and being non-binary, and anybody like that dealing with kind of microaggressions and, like, for example, having to, if you're misgendered all day long and having to have conversations about that, or just how that wears you down, that could be part of it too. For me specifically, it's more about being autistic, and I've been fatigued my whole life, right? I also have PTSD, and so PTSD especially, first of all, it's like I'm not getting very good sleep. I have nightmares a lot, that kind of thing. And then as an autistic person, that's I think this is a pretty common experience, is that I, I have so many things running through my head constantly. If there's issues with sleep, I've just, I rarely forget anything, and a lot of things, interactions with people confuse me. So I've 10,000 things going on in my head, and things from a year back, and they're constantly going on. And I'm, you know, simulating future conversations I'm going to have with people. It's hard to not have those perseverating thoughts and things running around in my head. And, kind of analyzing past conversations, because it's difficult. It's difficult social situations. And then I just try to analyze what went, if I think something went wrong, that kind of thing. Um, and then having executive functioning issues. So that relates to planning and prioritizing. So just figuring out what to do in a day and when I'm going to do it. ADHD is like also deal with time blindness. So just not being aware of how much time is passing, and it makes it difficult to estimate how much time an activity is going to take. So all that combined together, right? So, and so just being tired all the time. So I'll just have a certain amount of spoons, and I'm trying to work on, with my occupational therapist, I'm trying to work on like determining which activities, again, like taking a shower or writing emails or going to work, like how many spoons do those things take, and how many do I have in a day? And so there's things that take up spoons and things that kind of restore spoons. So I deal with things taking my spoons every day. And then what I work on later is, the coping part of it is trying to restore some of those spoons and energy units back. So on a daily thing, part of what takes up energy is masking. That takes up a huge amount of energy. So, trying to mask being autistic, just trying to fit in, being like constantly in a state of anxiety from sensory overload, that kind of thing. Social anxiety, and for me, just really concentrating on listening and speaking. I do a lot of that in my life and work, but it takes me just really like a lot of energy to listen and like process language and that kind of thing. And I have trouble staying on top of just feeding myself and drinking enough water and that kind of things. So little self-care things like that. Also takeaway spoons, and I have a certain amount per day, and I can almost like over borrow them from the next day, but that can lead to a shutdown or meltdown. And if those things happen, then rather than just, going to sleep at night and having my same sort of like low budget of energy units the next day of spoons, I can recover usually the same amount, even though if that's lower than much lower than what most people would have. But if I kind of have a really difficult day or something unexpected happens that takes a lot of spoons, and I kind of over borrow from my budget, then I might have this meltdown or shutdown, and then it might take days to recover. Let's say I have like 10 each day. I might then for the next 2 days only have 2 or 3, and maybe I'll just have energy to eat a bit of food, but I won't have enough energy to get dressed or do my makeup or have a shower or anything, or do any work or anything like that. So ways I kind of get around it are I need lots of naps for one thing. Like I kind of do them as sensory breaks. Like the more just overloaded I am with like lights and sound and visually rich environments and talking and those kind of things, like doing something like this is probably the only thing I'm really going to be able to accomplish today, and especially that takes a lot of brain power. So but I take a sensory break and lie down and make it quiet and dark and put on my weighted blanket and stuff like that. That kind of thing helps. Stimming is a big thing that helps. Getting sleep if possible, usually time alone versus like time with people. I need that time alone to recharge for sure. And yeah, getting enough to eat or drink if possible. And I want to make a whole video about this in the future, but like I have a really complex just way of scheduling and tasks and reminders, and working with this with my occupational therapist as well, and just trying to determine like how much can I really do in a day, and not trying to compete with people who don't have a disability, who are not autistic, who are not chronically fatigued, right? Like not trying to keep up with them, right? I'm trying to be real to what I can realistically do without destroying what I can do for the next 3 days, right? If I still push myself too hard a lot of the time, but I'm trying to really have a lot of visual reminders and say like a block of I can do this and this and this, and add up the amount of spoons and be like, that's my spoons budget for the day, and try to not do more than that, which is difficult because life is chaotic. Yeah, so I hope that helped you understand the term spoons. And I'm losing my words already. And if somebody says to you spoons, I hope now you'll kind of know where they're coming from a place where something causes them to really have much lower than average energy budget, whether it's physical or mental. And yeah, and that's what they use to define that energy. And yeah, so it'll give you an idea of maybe where they're coming from if they say spoons. And yes, thank you for watching.